So here we go. We're going to talk about the phylum Mollusca, which is all of the mollusks. And this includes clams, snails, octopi, etc., that are going to fall into this phylum. And you'll see why these wide variety of invertebrates actually are all categorized together. So the mollusks actually have kind of specific parts to them. This is why there are snails, octopi, clams, and things like that, squid, that all fall into this phylum. They have four major body parts. They have a head, a foot, a visceral mass, and a mantle. And I'll show you what those parts are here in a minute. So all mollusks have shells. Either some are external, like the snails that you can see and the clams you can see, and some are internal, which you might be wondering, well, like an octopus and a squid don't have a shell, but theirs is actually found internally. So go ahead and label your diagram there. The shell is obviously that outer covering. The foot is this region right down here. So this is the foot. This is what they're going to use to either help them move or actually attach themselves to things. And obviously this is going to be our head. And the visceral mass is located inside the shell. So I'm just going to put VM here for short because you know how well my pen works when I'm using my trackpad here. So the visceral mass is located inside of the shell, and these are the different parts that all mollusks have. Now, I'm sure if you're thinking if there's a head region, that this must mean that they have a specific type of symmetry, right? So all mollusks are bilaterally symmetrical, which means that they have two distinct halves. So this is kind of a cutaway of the snail, so you can kind of see what's going on inside of it. For their circulation, they actually have an open circulatory system. Remember with the earthworm we discussed, it was a closed circulatory system because the blood actually passes through vessels and it isn't exposed to the elements or the other liquids that it's around. But a mollusk will have an open circulatory system. They actually have colorless blood. They do have a heart with a few blood vessels. So you can see this arrow here is pointing to the heart of the snail, of the mollusk. And what it's going to do, it's going to pump the blood, and the blood's going to freely move throughout the snail here. They get rid of their waste by there's one or two pairs of kidneys. So there's either two kidneys or four kidneys, right, that are going to work on excreting the waste from the food that they digest. And how they actually breathe, this is the first phylum that we're going to experience where there's gills or like an actual lung that's going to draw the oxygen into the mollusk. You can see that this has like a gill-like structure right here that the arrow is pointing to, and that's where they're going to exchange the carbon dioxide and oxygen in their cells. For reproduction, they have to have separate sexes. So you're going to have a male and a female that are going to need to come together to make a offspring. The interesting thing is, depending upon the species, the fertilization can be internal or external. The larvae are called trochophores, and you can kind of see the development of the trochophore happening below. And here's a picture of some snail eggs that have been left behind. So this would be an example of the external fertilization where the eggs are laid and they are then fertilized and they develop there on that aquatic plant. So they actually have a well-developed digestive tract. It's called an alimentary canal. So there is obviously a mouth in their head region, and it will travel through and then go out their anus. So they actually will have a complete digestive system. The thing that's interesting about all mollusks is they have this specialized tongue. It's called a radula. It's located inside of their mouths, and it's actually kind of almost like, if you think about like a cheese grater, it works similar to that. When they extend their radula onto the surface that they're trying to either eat or get their food from, it kind of cleans it off or it shaves it, and they're able to bring the food then into the digestive tract. That's why actually before Bubble Bass ate all the snails, his tank was pretty clean because there were snails in there that used their radula to go around and clean the algae and the things like that that were collecting on the side of the glass. So, because there is bilateral symmetry, we know that there has complex organ systems, right? So, there are several pair sets of ganglia. So, not yet still a fully developed brain, but there is going to be a nervous system that's going to be centralized in the head region and go throughout the entire part of the mollusk. They are complex and they're varied. They actually include like balance receptors, so that helps like the squid swim in a direction, and not only that, but also keep them balanced. So same thing with an octopus. They also have chemical receptors, light receptors. If they don't have eyes, the squid and the octopus do have eyes, but in this snail, for example, the light receptors are going to kind of be up here. They're not eyes, but they're a way for them to kind of sense things as well as feel things too. And now, if you remember when we were talking about the 4 parts that every mollusk has, this internal area, remember, that is protected by the shell, this is the visceral mass. So this is the point where all of the organs are kept. The shell obviously protects it so to keep it from getting damaged. There are 3 classes of mollusks that we're going to take a look at that are distinctly different. However, they do have all of those characteristics of mollusk. The first one is the bivalvia, which means bi meaning 2 once again. So there's 2 shells for these. So this would include clams, oysters, scallops, mussels, all of those organisms that have two shells that come together that meet. So the visceral mass is going to be located inside of the shell. And then within that, actually, if you think about like mussels or clams or oysters, are usually attached to something. And that is going to be their foot that they're going to use to attach to that. And they also will have like gill-like structures inside of them so that they can extract the oxygen from the water. So that's a bivalvia. The next type of class of mollusks we're going to discuss are the gastropoda or gastropods. And these organisms, it literally translates to stomach foot. So gastro meaning stomach, pod meaning foot. So this would be your snails, slugs, nudibranchs, anything. The nudibranchs are going to be organisms that are aquatic 100%. The snails can be both, and slugs can kind of be both too. So you're going to find that actually as their foot is considered to be their stomach because that's what they use to move along. And our last phylum is the cephalopoda or the cephalopods. And cephalopoda is head-footed. So the foot of the cephalopod is actually located within the head region. And this is what's going to include squid, octopus, and nautiluses. So we will look at these 3 examples in class a little bit closer so you can understand the difference between the 3. And when we dissect the squid, we'll be taking a very close look at cephalopods. We are going to watch the video that I'm going to attach into the Google Classroom together in class. If you were absent, please make sure you watch it. And if you'd like to watch it again, it's there for your enjoyment. So this is all of the information on mollusks.